And I think today's called A House Divided. So if you've followed me sometime, I'm sort of addicted to this idea of like a neo-confederacy kind of a thing. So I wanted to go through because I couldn't even understand what was going on with these votes that have happened in Congress. So we're going to go through that for a minute. And I posted it for everybody. Probably should have posted it just for paid. Um, and we'll talk about markets a little bit. And, I'm the guy that says the stock market and the war are the same thing. It's a really sort of bizarre perspective, but I'm going to try to pull that off. And I want you to see that you can see it now in the U.S. Congress. Like all the founding fathers are egregoring and floating around Independence Hall right now, watching what's happening, because this is the biggest threat. This is a bigger threat to the Union, to use Civil War talk, as 1860 and as Pearl Harbor and the War of 1812 and the Depression and everything. This is the big one, folks. This is the big one. So I just published two things happened almost simultaneously. They do have to do, I'm the guy that says that we are essentially living in a theocracy. We are living in a system that has completely betrayed the Bill of Rights. The first sentence of the Bill of Rights is not about freedom of speech, it's freedom of religion. And the nation state of Israel is trying to force literally a merger, the end of U.S. sovereignty through the U.S. Congress, and it's being blocked. And in crude terms, it's being blocked by about half of the Jewish members of Congress and Senate. So let's just go through that for a minute. So and there's one massive, it's called the NSDD, I think, or NDSA or something like that. It's the big Defense Appropriations Act with $3 billion to go to Israel, $3.3 billion. And Thomas Massie is a lame duck congressman because Israeli American, that's probably fair to call her that, and other ardent Zionists unloaded, I think, $20 or $30 million on a very rural district in Tennessee and got Thomas Massie driven out of Congress, just like they got rid of MTG. And as these things happen, I think people on both sides of the aisles, people from a lot of different walks of life, can see how heavy-handed this is, that this money comes in. I mean, it's a rural area like out here. You come in here with $20 million, you can buy everything. So people are seeing that the sovereignty, the function, the political functioning is under threat from Mary Adelson, from AIPAC. I lost 87,000 followers, implying that I forget what word I used. I didn't say the Jews. I did because I'm not Nick Fuentes. I said Israel has a lot of influence over social media. Pretty like milquetoast thing to say. Well, now we can see that it's very, very heavy-handed. And now we can see we voted for Trump. He's going to end the forever wars. Tulsi Gabbard was on board with that. Bobby Kennedy was on board with that. People like me were on board with that. And we all followed him. I didn't vote for him the second time. I don't even know if I voted. Did I vote for Trump the second? I don't even know, nor do I care. I voted for him the first time. So he was the guy that didn't believe in the invasion of Iraq. And so lo and behold, 16 months into his presidency, he starts bombing the living shit out of Iran, bombing the Persian Gulf. It's an exchange of missiles and planes and whatever. We've all heard it, and we all know what's going on. We're now to the point where both Trump and Iran say we're going to wipe out each other's infrastructure. Like I'm not even really sure that like during World War II that there were open conversations about killing leaders and doing damage directly to infrastructure unless it had some sort of explanation of why it was part of their war effort, although we did firebomb Dresden. So a couple days ago, Lindsey Graham goes to Ukraine and comes back dead. That was probably the Ukrainian mafia, which is Jewish. And if that's hard for you to hear, like maybe you need to like have a conversation with yourself. It's now so bad. I mean, this is very much like the house divided Lincoln kind of a thing. The house divided cannot stand. What does an end of a war feel like? You're in it. Your parliament, your powers that be start to waver on what they're doing. And we can really now see what the war on terror really is. It is a Jewish war. Yeah, I'm the guy that got this book out for you. Remember this? Remember 9/11? There were these Middle Eastern extremists, and they wanted to take over the West and take away our rights and form like a caliphate. Yeah, that's all happening, except they're not Muslims, they're Jews. And American Jews tend to be either very, very observant, like you see in Brooklyn, and they're not Zionists, or they're very, very secular, and those people are sort of torn. But they can see now that this whole idea that like Israel is the homeland of the Jews and a safe place, Iran can rain down a missile on anything at any time in Israel. And Israel's about the size of New Jersey. So I like to do the theology too. We don't really talk about it very much, but I read a great piece on Substack and I sort of lost it. I could go find it again. It goes through Christian, Jewish, and Islamic eschatology. That's the end of the world. And you guys know, if you followed me for some time, that I like this guy, Sheikh Imran Hussein. And in all three traditions, there's a sort of frontier of thinking that God is going to bring the end of the world and we don't really need to push it along. Even Augustine talks about this because in early Christianity, they thought that the coming of the kingdom of God, the end of the world, Christ returning, was going to happen like imminently. That applies to like the Chabad movement. You can go on TikTok and other places and you can see, I don't really know if Bill Gates is Jewish or not, but he's in the mix. And as they go through and they meet Schneerson says, "What are you doing to bring about the Messiah?" He says it to Netanyahu. Everything is about accelerating to bring the Messiah. This goes back to the Jacob Frank. This goes back to, if you don't know who that is, I think Schneerson, not Schneerson, Gershom Scholem called him the most dangerous Jew that ever lived, was Jacob Frank. And they believe in inverting the world's order, like laws, traditions, culture. Like most cultures are like, you get married, you can get divorced, but we'd rather you not. And like there's some order to like have property with your kids and stuff like that. It's pretty universal, right? Well, they don't believe in any of that. They don't believe in any of that. They don't believe in the bill. They're trying to force a merger between the United States, which is founded on the separation of church and state, and Congress shall pass no law creating a religion, enforcing a religion. I forget the exact word. I should have that memorized by now. And a Jewish state. And that's getting pushed through right now. And we're at high noon. We're at high noon. Like it's 50-50. So the attempt to remove the $3.3 billion from the big defense thing, the attempt to block that failed. Okay, so the block was blocked. So that went through, and then the attempt to force through the complete merger of defense and intelligence of the United States and Israel was blocked you can go look at it. I put the Manus up so you can go look name by name. You can go look and see if your congressman is one of them. About half of the Jews in both the Senate and Congress voted to block that. Now, the theology of it is for 2,000 years, 99.99999% of the rabbis said that no, Zionism is forbidden. That we are not going to try to conspire against the Gentiles to return to the Holy Land and rebuild the third temple, which is what Zionism is. And even to this day, the most observant Jews in Israel do not participate in the military. They don't vote. They don't even recognize the Jewish state. They, like a kind of almost like Jewish humor, they go what is a Jewish state? It's actually funny. I actually have a lot of respect for him from that standpoint. So it's here, people. We are in high noon. We are at the stage where this is going to break one way or the other. Now, Joe Rogan's has JD Vance on it. JD Vance JD Vance I'm sure is fake. JD Vance is an agent of I don't know what kind of, don't know. I'm the guy that tells you that this is all conspiracy. There isn't a US government and some people over here conspiring on the side. There's a conspiracy. Problem is we don't have a government anymore. So JD Vance goes on, because this is why they picked him. This is why he's just like Obama. He's written 3 books by himself. He's had 4 names since he was in junior high school. He sort of married a girl you wouldn't really expect him to marry. His kids are maybe a little bit weird. He has a handler from Yale Law School. He's just like Obama. Do I know? No, I don't know. But I do know that Peter Thiel wrote a check for $15 million. Peter Thiel, of course, is sort of the captain of the PayPal mafia, right? Who builds all this stuff for us. All this technology stuff. We'll get to that in a second. So JD Vance is like the Gerald Ford, right? He's going to come in when everybody realizes that Trump is completely insane and he's younger, and he's going to go on Tucker Carlson. To his credit, I think Nick Fuentes said that Tucker Carlson had JD Vance on Fox News something like 42 times, like 10 times more than any other Republican, because they're grooming this guy, right? I mean, that's what a vice president is. So he's the guy that's yeah, I know the Epstein files are real. You're the fucking vice president. Okay. You're are you going to call for the impeachment of the president of the United States for raping a 13-year-old? No, but I'm going to play, I'm going to play in the podcast world, and I'm going to pretend like I'm both sides. See, this is how America works. Everywhere you look, there's conspiracy. Nothing is what it seems to be. It's a confederacy. We even use the word Confederate, like a Confederate dollar. We use the word in a kind of conspiracy that is beyond the law, that is almost like gangster-like. And this is who JD Vance is, and this is what's going down. The entire Republican Party, except for Thomas Massie, voted against his attempt to block the money to Israel. So I've said that the Republican Party is the party of treason. It really is. The Republican, if you're a Republican and that offends you, good. You need to think real hard about that. The Republican Party is trying to merge our defense and intelligence with an adversary. Exactly like the Civil War, where Judah Benjamin was going to make an alliance between the Confederacy and the British Empire and the French. And he said that as he walked out of the Appomattox courthouse. They should have hung him. Seriously. Because what happened is our understanding of the Civil War fell back into the states' rights thing. And Lincoln just said, let them all go home. And here we are again with the exact same problem. We are a British colony again. Israel is a British colony. We have no way to. I just heard this, and I knew this, but I hadn't heard it for a while. Do you know when the oil is sold in Iraq, do you know where the money goes? The money goes right to the Federal Reserve, not to the US Treasury, not to the checking account of in Ireland of Exxon or something like that. It goes right to the Federal Reserve. It goes right to Judah Benjamin. It goes right to the Rothschilds. If the Rothschilds run the Federal Reserve, I don't know that. I just say it because it's easy to say and it's sort of funny, and I say Mrs. Rothschild. But we invaded that fucking country. I believe the NASDAQ started its bull market. So let's get into that. I believe the NASDAQ started its bull market when we went to Iraq, not Afghanistan, we went to Iraq. Because Wall Street reads these wars as we're going to get something out of it. To include, how is the stock market at an all-time fucking high right now? It's at 41 times the Case-Shiller cyclical adjusted earnings, the highest it's ever been, higher than 1929. And we're talking about blowing up all the infrastructure. It just came. The Iranians just said, okay, if you hit our infrastructure, we're going to take out all the infrastructure in the Persian Gulf and Saudi Arabia. And the stock market's at an all-time high because they think they're going to get free oil out of it. It's a confederacy. It's all fucked up everywhere you look. Okay, let's do the markets. Where's the biggest volatility in the markets? It's not the US market, is it? It's Korea. How's come? Because we don't make the chips. SK Hynix makes the chips. NVIDIA doesn't make those chips. Right? Just like Apple doesn't make Apple phones, it's Foxconn in China. We have conflated this NASDAQ tech domination phantasmagoria since we invaded Iraq. We're going to just go around the world and blow shit up and do whatever the fuck we want because we have the best technology. This is all completely insane. This is the Confederacy. Oh, you're going to go to war with the North and you don't have a cannon factory. That's what Rhett Butler said at the beginning of Gone with the Wind. Why is this not chart? Mr. Snerdley. Speaking of Apple, that iPad is 11 years old. It might be time to get a new one. But it's up, it's free, and it's on Substack, and you can go through and you can look at all the congressmen. Manus put a nice little piece. My point to you is, just to wrap that up, the U.S. Congress is completely 50-50 on this. And I think it's getting worse. And as the war in Iran escalates, the economic fallout escalates. The price of gas went down a little bit in the last month. The world has been living off of basically tank farming, where China and the United States just ran their reserves down for the last 6 months. Okay, let's go back to stocks. So the peak of the market is not happening in the NASDAQ, it's happening in Korea because they're actually the people that make the chips, SK Hynix. So the stock I posted for you and compared it to JDS Uniphase. I think JDS Uniphase went up 1,000% in a couple of years. Is that right? Or 300? I don't know. I posted it. SK Hynix went up 3 times as much as JDS Uniphase, and then is now in free fall. The end of the war is the end of the stock market. And let me rephrase that. The end of the war will be the end of the bull market that started in 2003, not in 2009 and 10. I have a weirder perception of this than even people like GMO, Jeremy Grantham. Everybody thinks we started the bull market after the great financial crisis because of the money printing, because of the quantitative easing and Ben Bernanke. And I'm like, nope. I've lived through the exact same story since I became a stockbroker in 1999. We have the best tech, which we don't anymore. So let's do that. I woke up this morning real early, like at 5 o'clock. And as soon as my eyes opened, I thought to myself, just run in your own mind, just run through the names of American technology. Chamath Palihapitiya, Horowitz Andreessen, um, of course, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Sam Altman, Bill Gates, throw Mark Cuban in there. O'Leary's trying to build a data center in Utah, is it? Just run through your top 20 tech names, right? And Trump comes out, $22 trillion. Nobody's ever, unbelievable. Nobody's ever seen anything like it. Remember? In the White House, it's $22 trillion. He doesn't have $22 trillion, by the way. We have this, all the tech bros get on this, right? We just lived through this for 2 years. And it's weird because they're all historically Democrats. Then we get the whole weird thing with Peter Thiel and the Antichrist, right? Which Tim Dillon has fun with. Then we get Alex Karp, who we have to give him his due. Alex Karp comes out and writes a book and says, we're going to take over your country, the Technological Republic, which I've always argued is basically Israel, but not the state of Israel, not like the Knesset or something like that, not even Miriam Adelson, like in a religious way. We're just going to control you with our AI, and if we don't like you, we'll kill you. So Palantir is a kill chain. So $22 trillion was pledged. All the big eggheads in the Silicon Valley were in on this. All the cash flow of Facebook, Microsoft, Oracle, Google and Apple. Google and Apple are different because they're sort of monopolies and they're never going to lose their monopolies. So they won the whole thing. So let's just exclude them for a minute. But all the other hyperscalers have put all the tech cash flow into this. One guy in China won the whole thing. He runs DeepSeek. One fucking guy in China wiped out this whole list, $22 trillion, data centers the size of Manhattan, the whole backstop of the fucking US Treasury. One guy in China. Whenever I hear this bullshit, I go like, just for fun, let's just say right now there's somewhere in the world, there's 25,000 people playing Bach on a piano. Probably 5% of them are in Germany and 3% are in Russia or something like that. And the rest of them are in China. Like this idea that we're going to I think Elon Musk at one point said that, I think when this all started, remember, he was working with Trump, he said, China's 10 years behind us. This is a war, people. This is a war, and they lost. And I'm not trying to terrify you. You understand that the missiles flying into Russia and flying into Iran are all being sent, not by admirals and whatever, the fucking generals in the Air Force and Strategic Air Command and all. It's Alex Karp's fucking computers sending these missiles in. You just got to stop for a minute and go what if that doesn't work? And even the US Congress, as much as I've sat here and bitched about it and, had a big following on TikTok and would go like this, let me tell you something, Linda. I will say that there's something weird going on in Substack that I don't know how to say this the right way. It's not really my personality to be I told you, but I get the sense that everything I've thought about and talked about and everything is happening and nobody really wants to hear it. It's going to break the stock market. It's going to 70-year-old white men are just they're not going to be able to even follow what the story is. Like, it's not going to be like the mortgage crisis. They're not even going to know what. There's nobody allocating the capital. Do you understand how serious that is? Like, remember the Soviet Union sort of like ran itself into the ground because everything was run by the Kremlin? Do you understand that there's like, we don't even have a Kremlin? I just told you, like, all the tech people got blown out by one guy. At the Super Bowl, we ought to have the coach of Indiana and that guy from China. And they had to like give America a speech on like how not to fuck things up. The whole system failed against, if you put together, Alex Karp would say openly when he was doing these, he was coming on CNBC and talking about his book, Technological Republic, and he would just openly, because he's a complete spaz, he would jokes about himself being neurodivergent. He says, hey, we're going to go to war with Russia, China, and Iran using AI. One guy beat him. And that's what your 401k is based on. 10 stocks, all of which are AI. 5% of GDP, the largest infrastructure build out in American history. Like, it's like 5-6 times bigger than the New Deal was this AI spending. Now, I don't want to try to sell too many things too many times, but tomorrow at the close, I'm going to announce it's on. If you're a subscriber, you're going to get an email from Camille today, and we're launching our product. And it's connected to DeepSeek and Chain Opera. Tomorrow, I'll announce that. Now, if you've been on here for 5 years, hearing the exact same thing day after day after day after day, it gets a little, wears you out after 5 years. I've said things like, well, one day you're going to wake up and it's going to be the end of the war and the end of the stock market, and we're going to need reconstruction. And that'll be tomorrow at 4:00 Eastern. No one will have any idea of what the fuck to do about anything. The Democratic Party doesn't have leadership. JD Fat Vance is going to like pretend like he's not really an insider, that he's not completely owned by and potentially the lover of Peter Thiel, right? They're going to have all that to have fun with. Somebody came on TikTok when they had the first vice presidential debate, and the woman's like, and she had a thick Southern accent. I think JD Vance is about 2 martinis away from being honest. I'm sorry, it's just very fun. And then we have the whole like grinder thing in the Republican Party. I mean, the Republican Party may be the Whig Party. Remember the Whig Party in 4th grade when you learned about the thing and like the Whig Party went away and was replaced by the Republican Party? The Republican Party is now the Whig Party. It's all in Israel. It's when you vote for a Republican, you're just voting for Israel. And the whole country is going to have to make a decision. Mr. Snerdley. We're not going to do that right now because it's just not at the tip of my tongue. Okay, so stock market. I saw a graph this week of the ratio of like the top 1% of income to the rest of the population of the United States. And in like they call it the Gilded Age, like in the late 19th century, before we had income tax and corporate laws, and so like the Carnegies and the people that built Pittsburgh and the Vanderbilts and so forth, they just made money and they had no taxes. So their ability to just buy up the economy was limitless. So that peak like this, you know what the graph looks like today? This. It's the worst it's ever been. It's like 5 times as bad as it was at the turn of the 20th century. when the antitrust laws and Teddy Roosevelt was visited by JP Morgan and said, "What are you doing?" I thought we were like somebody famously said about Teddy Roosevelt, we bought the son of a bitch, but the son of a bitch didn't stay bought. And um, it's French Revolution like numbers. So the war is going to end. The political Congress is going to be 50-50. This thing is like this. It's primarily based on the stock market. The consumption patterns, the economy, the ability to buy another $100,000 pickup truck from Ford Motor Company is coming from people who are getting paid by the stock market. What do you mean paid by the stock market? Well, when they go to Mrs. Kowalski's fancy house and put in a bigger pool, Mrs. Kowalski's not paying for that with income from her business. She's not paying with it with dividends. She's paying from capital gains from the stock market. The whole economy is running on capital gains. What happens if we don't have any more capital gains? Yeah, that's the fun part, isn't it? You may see congressmen resign. And let's just be frank about it. It's better than 50% chance that Lindsey Graham was just murdered by the Ukrainian mafia. Because all the revenue to the Ukrainian government is drone contracts. This, I don't know if it's possible, but this used to happen to me on Twitter or on TikTok all the time. I would say something real edgy and the thing would lock up for a second. It was a real challenge, like doing the whole TikTok thing, because it was so sensitive to Substack's not as bad. I think they'll be making a big push. Oh, the White House is making a big push about left-wing terrorism. Global left-wing terrorism. Iran and Cuba are funding neo-Marxists, terrorists. I mean, I can't even tell you the last time I've heard of a terrorist. So we just don't know what the fuck else to say, right? It's the end of the war on terror, the whole thing. Iran isn't like blowing us up. We're blowing up Iran. So they have to, now it's Marxism to go back into the fucking 1950s. They have nothing, people. They have nothing. They're running out of ammo. Trump looks exhausted. He's running out of mojo. JD Vance is sort of like a fake Gen X guy. He's edgy. He's on Joe Rogan. And even Joe Rogan's looking at him like, you can't be fucking serious. You're the vice president of the United States and you're going to tell me you're a Epstein conspiracy theorist? All right, go on the floor. You're the president of the Senate. Go on the floor of the fucking Senate and ask them to begin the indictment. Impeachment happens in the House. The indictment happens in the Senate. So all these things happen and you're just going to go on Joe Rogan? Like they're eating kids and shit. Leon Black, like bit a young girl in the private parts, and you're just going to go on Joe Rogan. I mean, it's so. The curtain's been pulled back. The U.S. government is a conspiracy. Stocks. If you want to think about, I think I did a whole thing for like a couple of minutes yesterday and never mentioned the book. But the book that you need right now is The Misbehavior of Markets. It's don't go study Warren Buffett. Don't go study somebody put something on Substack and said, what books should I read? Like The Value Investor by Benjamin Graham and all that. That's not going to help. We're not talking about like whether Ford Motor Company is like, 37% overvalued. We're asking questions like, who is going to buy all the stocks that come out of the ETFs? Nobody knows the answer to that. In other words, there's $20 trillion in ETFs. They're literally like baskets of stocks. And then there's there's baskets of stocks that are levered. And during the Depression, these were called UITs, unit investment trusts. These are levered 2-to-1, not before the Depression, they were levered like 8 and 9-to-1. Follow me? So you've got like $100,000 worth of stock, and then the UITs were made out of UITs, which were made out of, and there was really nothing in them. So people aren't really investing in stocks. They're not even investing in mutual funds, which are like professional management. They're investing in these really like a derivative, like this basket of, but nobody's buying the ETF because of the underlying fundamentals of the companies. Like, they don't even know what they are. I mean, there's no way any fiduciary could say you should put 40% of your money in 10 companies at 10 times sales. That's venture capital. That's for like billionaires to piss around with 2% of their portfolio, not 50% of 60-year-olds in the United States retirement accounts are in stocks. So 25% of their liquid net worth is in the AI stocks. 15% of the corporate bond market is in AI. And like 2 trillion of private equity debt, private credit, they call it, put together by Apollo. That's the guy who bit the girl in the vagina. They also bought insurance companies, Athene and the other one, which I just read about yesterday. These are insurance companies funding the AI. I don't even want to call it a bubble. The AI hallucination. AI isn't a bubble; it's a hallucination. So they're going to go in and they're going to unpack $20 trillion of these ETFs. The way they do that is like this cup of coffee. Imagine this is filled with like jelly beans or something like that. And people start selling this thing. Okay. They're not selling the beans, they're selling this thing. So the way they do this is they sell the beans and get rid of the cup. They get rid of the shares. Is that true? No, I said that wrong. Forgive me. What I just described is the way mutual funds work. Closed-end funds are like locked into the stocks. So what happens if this thing starts to drop and there's really nobody to buy the underlying stocks? There's like a completely mismatch because all the demand was for the ETFs, not for the individual stocks. So like, let's say 5% of the ETFs tried to sell one day. 5% of 20 trillion is 100 billion. Yeah. There's not going to be any buying power to hold the thing together. I mean, people talked about this 10, 15 years ago when the ETF started to take off. People started to say, like, what would happen in a massive reversal? Now, the Federal Reserve will clearly get involved. No question about it. No question about it. Because you could have the stock market just turn off. There just wouldn't be. It'd be like I always tell these like sort of country folky things. Like 4,000 lambs get sold on a big weekend where we take our lambs. Like if they showed up with 400,000 lambs, the lambs wouldn't clear. There wouldn't be a price. They just wouldn't get sold. There's nobody to buy them. That's what we're talking about here. And, like they're never going to put someone like me on CNBC and talk about this. They're just not. There's no fucking way. You couldn't work. Just look at what happened with the AI thing. They got this like 30-year-old British game reviewer, this Zitron guy, right? And he just blows think about all the analysts and all the tech analysts and the whole litany of all the tech, Chamath Palihapitiya and the All In podcast and this random British guy just blows them all off the fucking water. Do you know why? Because these people don't have anything. They don't have any tech that anybody really needs anymore. I shouldn't say it like that. They don't have any new tech. So they're in on like the big grift, the big $22 trillion Trump grift. And Sam Altman's like, yeah, maybe the government should take 5% ownership. OpenAI is done, people. OpenAI is done. Oracle's done. I wanted to look. Let's see. I mean, look at the graph of Microsoft. Like, if you're my age, like we sort of grew up like watching Microsoft take over the world. Like, I think it's down 35% for the year, something like that. Oracle's down 50% in the last 6 months. Oracle's going to go bankrupt. Oracle's going to go out of business. Oracle is going to go down more and start to trigger the sale of Oracle to cover the borrowings against the stock of Larry Ellison, the biggest private contributor to the IDF. I think that brings this whole thing full circle. The IDF, the US Congress, the NASDAQ, the AI, it's all one big thing, isn't it? It's just all hooked together everywhere you look. It's all a conspiracy. It's all circular finance of NVIDIA's putting money in Oracle. Oracle's putting money in OpenAI. OpenAI's putting money in NVIDIA. NVIDIA's issuing bonds, buying its own stock back. NVIDIA, get this. NVIDIA is going to buy compute from the people who built the compute because they can already see the demand isn't there. One guy in China blew the whole thing wide open. The founder of DeepSeek. Iran is 50-50. Russia has the largest nuclear stockpile and a whole bunch of weapons that nobody talks about, that because Russians are real weird and they're scary people and they do scary things. When about 2 to 3 years into a war, they just kill everybody. They just start to kill everybody. I mean, it's pretty amazing. A U.S. senator goes to Ukraine and doesn't come back. Can you imagine, like, if a Russian, like if Medvedev or something like that went to Montreal and said, you Quebecers should like start to put missiles in here and break away from Canada. Can you fucking imagine? And then before he gets on the train to come back, he says, we're killing all the right people. This is Lindsey Graham. This is the state of South Carolina, the state that brought you the Civil War, elected for 20 years. An asshole who says we're killing all the right people. The stock market and the Congress in Israel may not be the worst of our worries. Oh, sorry about that. We that whole war on terror thing, millions of people killed and displaced. We got off the just we had a bad couple years there. Tomorrow at the close, regardless of what the stock market does. I mean, I don't even really need to. It's like Hamlet, like when it will come, it will come. Like Christ said the same thing. At some point, there's just going to be a realization that there's like a 10 to $20 trillion vacuum in the American economy. There's the $22 trillion that Trump floated around doesn't exist. It became market cap, though. That's my point. But there's no asset underneath it. Well, I mean, if you remember the mortgage crisis, I don't know what the number was, but the total mortgages that went into default was probably very, very low. It was probably like 3% ultimately. It was, well, I'm sorry, I don't have the numbers, but I'm sure it was less than 10%. The problem is they made mortgage sausage, which would be like, well, you have pork with trichinosis and you grind it all up with all the other pork, and now we have trichinosis in all the pork. That's what they did. They made mortgage sausage. That's why the problem was so bad. It wasn't that the number of foreclosures or the ability to recover principal and interest was 50% of mortgages or anything like that. What I'm telling you is they will have trouble recovering 50% of the AI debt and the AI equity. 50%. Oracle's already down 50%. All the cash flow of the big tech companies is going into this. So it's not quite $1 trillion. It's like 680 billion or something like that. All the free cash flow of the tech companies is now negative. So tomorrow at 4, bring a friend. If you're a subscriber for free, if you just subscribe, you don't pay. I think Camille sent out an email this morning, or it'll be there by the end of the day. And then I'll do like my shtick at 4:00, and we'll show you what we've built after all this time, all of our fits and starts and all the money spent and all the research done and tech people contacted who came and went and dropped off and never really understood the project because they didn't believe in it. It's just completely absurd to like look at the $60 trillion stock market and just go, nope, not feeling it. There's nothing there, people. There's nothing there. I mean, Exxon and Walmart they're going to be fine. They can go down huge numbers. So, the book to buy your nephew or your uncle or whoever, like it's The Misbehavior of Markets, and 1987, the stock market went down 25% in a day and closed down 20%. Oh, what's the greatest name in the last 100 years in technology? It's not the size, but it's been in business since the 1950s, is IBM. And IBM went down 25% in an instant last week. 25, just the graph looks like this. This is why you have to go. The Misbehavior of Markets is the only book that will explain to you how and why is there discontinuous pricing? How did the price go from, I don't know what it was, 80 to 62 or something in an instant? Not 80 to 79 to this to this. This is like, was here, now it's here, and starts over again. And all the other financial books say that that's irregular. That's not real. That's you have to throw that out of your thinking. And the Misbehavior of Markets says, no, that's the market catching up with reality. So, tell a friend, join for free. I mean, the worst thing you're going to get is like an email from me and Camille, and you'll be like on the inside of what we're going to release tomorrow. But reconstructions tomorrow. See you at 4:00.